Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, gamer boys and girls, welcome back to the pod. Spooktober is over, Christmas is incoming, and this is the month where muffled Mariah Carey songs playing in the background getting louder and louder each day. But first, let's talk about the November 2022 bundle.
Possibly the best title of the monthly bundle, Eldest Souls is a boss rush, or boss fighter, or whatever on earth they're officially called type of game. In practice, this means there's almost no other content here, but fighting boss after boss after boss until you manage to best them all. While possibly one of the most niche genres out there, I'm actually part of the 0.001% of humans that really appreciate it, and Eldest delivers a pretty solid experience. Your basic moveset is easy to understand. You have a light attack, a heavy attack that charges a special move that then gives passive bonuses, and you have a dash move to avoid incoming attacks. This then gets extended by an additional move based on which talent tree you choose, and each move is then further altered by empowering them with shards you receive from defeating bosses. All you have to do is decide which loot you want to socket into which move, and then try not to forget what alterations you made. To be fair though, even if you completely forget, the base kit is already capable enough to down the bosses. The emphasis here, like in any good boss fighter game, is patience and clean execution. Spamming any move will lead to fairly sudden death, as just attacking leaves you vulnerable, and just dodging not only doesn't kill your opponent, but also leaves you with no charges left for crucial moments. Out of the 4 bosses I've cleared so far, all 4 of them had its own recognizable theme. For example, the light dude went in heavy on area denial, the fire and water balls tasks the player with fighting not 1 but 2 opponents, and the ice guy denies your dodge charges if you get caught in one too many of his attacks. Luckily, the game also does well when it comes to telegraphing. While it can take a while, as it should, to memorize the moveset of any boss, and then some to actually match the incoming attack with the animation that comes before, I'd wager a handful of attempts should be enough for anyone to get through to the second phase of any boss, where the same core moveset is presented in a much more challenging way. I've got absolutely nothing negative to say about Eldest Souls, so all I got is if you're familiar with the genre, go for it. Otherwise, why not give it a try and see if you end up enjoying the rough but rewarding gameplay these types of games have to offer.
Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning is a revisit of the original game that came out in 2012. And I've got to say it feels like a 2012 game, both visually and mechanically. At first glance, grasping the differences and visual improvements of this re-edition is prohibitive. There is nothing that highlights a renewed technical sector, sharper details, refined textures or shaders and resized effects. I could then add that I would have expected to see an animation sector at least partially renewed from the visual point of view, with the particles invoked by a lightning storm, a meteor shower on an element chakram lash, more fluid, bright and sparkling. Starting from one of 4 available classes, each devoted to a different style and play, and which follows the classic stylistic features of the genre, you can easily hybridize the approach of the adventure. To enhance an extremely varied but profoundly essential and accessible formula in its structure, a handful of interesting ideas contribute, such as the Destiny cards. They are special tarot cards that alter the characteristics of the character by unlocking an active or passive abilities, and the ease of being able to reset points assigned to the various abilities. The combat system then is also based on the combination of accessibility, essentiality and variety that I have already mentioned. The sequence of basic and charged attacks with the possibility of equipping and using 2 weapons at the same time joins the active skills diversified into 3 main parameters of strength, magic and dexterity. Of course, today the absence of a lock system is felt more, which makes the group clashes more difficult to manage, forcing the player to fight not only with opponents but also with the shot. The minimap, which always signals the position of our enemies, comes to our aid, and the situation never becomes tragic, but some refinement aimed at improving these aspects could have helped. The progression, although it may be defined as old-fashioned, is in short hinged on a powerful loot system, which this reproposal has been partially revised. Now, the release of resources has been contingent and widespread, thanks to an algorithm that adapts the type of objects dropped and recovered in the chest to the player's style of play. As mages, we will have more access to robes, sticks or scepters than in the original experience, while as warriors, we will more frequently come across armor or greatswords. Kingdoms of Amalur Re-Reckoning is a static, inertial, lazy, and in which moreover a handful of technical annoyances rage. The differences compared to the original production are infinitesimal, almost imperceptible, and mostly involve small collateral measures to balance the experience. The visual restoration seems not to have been received, the gameplay is essentially unchanged, and the changes in the management of the levels, of the experience acquired in the game and of the loot, together with the addition of handful and useful visual options, may not be sufficient enough to endorse Aiko's work. This revival, however, seems to represent yet another setback for a title that seems unable to free itself from the plots of an adverse fate, unlike its revived silent hero.
It was almost exactly a year ago, last December, that we received an extremely similar title in the form of Beyond the Wire, and I remember I enjoyed absolutely none of it. Not a good sign going into this one, but hey, always keep an open mind, right? Sadly, not even an open mind could help me find any appreciation for the complete lack of a reasonable tutorial once again. Screens packed full of texts are just never going to be satisfactory for me. A much more positive revelation, on the other hand, was noticing just how many 100-player lobbies were packed full of players. Most of them even had a full waiting queue to be able to get in. Good shit, at least it's not a dead multiplayer game once again. As for the gameplay itself, it's pretty solid, but it has to be noted that it is by far not for everyone. In an era where we are used to flashy, neon lights, over-the-top, fast-paced, small player count, turn-by-turn FPS titles, HLL delivers the complete opposite. There's no neon colors, no flashy animations, no over-the-top effects. Instead, there's mud, ruins, trench warfare, and the occasional bombing run supporting the realistic approach. On 100-player servers, there's gonna be 50 opposing players waiting to murder you from every angle conceivable. And believe me, on the previously mentioned realism aspect, it doesn't take a lot to die. Or in other words, your first hour or even more is going to be nothing else than dying over and over again without even seeing any enemy, right until you learn to slow the fuck down and push the front lines forward inch by inch until either the game timer runs out and the winner is declared, or the objective of the map is met. It's hard to put my finger on what exactly is so different between HLL and the previously mentioned Against the Wire. It might just be down to the much more clean visuals, or it might not even be a them thing, rather a me thing. But around an hour and a half, I definitely started enjoying the experience, and I really didn't want to stop at 2. As stated earlier, this one's definitely not gonna be everyone's cup of tea, but if you can grab a buddy or two to join in on it and face war together, I think you'll have a great time.
Inspired by Hindu and Balinese mythology, the game aims to envelop the audience with the ancient atmosphere of medieval Rajasthan, devastated by a conflict between divinities and demonic hordes. We'll play as Raji, a circus artist, to be precise a tightrope walker. Galeee, younger brother and only family member of the girl, is entrusted to her care. In addition to her life, the child also supports her sister at work, thanks to a natural talent for storytelling and the practice of shadow theater. In fact, it is during an exhibition at an Indian traditional fair that the young duo's existence is turned upside down. While Galeee bewitches his audience by evoking a mythological conflict between gods and demons, an army of shadow creatures suddenly bursts into the realm of man, ready to put him to fire and sword. Leading the dark entities is Mahabalasura, a demonic lord seeking revenge, ready to challenge the gods who had confined him 1,000 years ago. The fury of the supernatural army is unleashed on human beings, and in particular on the children unfortunately present on the site of the invasion. The boys, including Galeee, are kidnapped by demons, and now it is up to Raji to save her brother and everyone on the way. Upon awakening, the acrobat opens her eyes in a mysterious valley dominated by architecture typical of ancient India and surrounded by a solemn and mysterious atmosphere. Two gods choosing her as their champion in the new war on Mahabalasura, and the presence of the deities is immediately perceivable by the player. The events of Raji, an ancient epic, are in fact narrated through Durga, goddess of war, and the god of Vishnu. While a fixed camera follows the progress of a minute representation of the protagonist, it is the interaction between the two divine figures that describes the narrative context and the evolution of events. The great protagonist of the story is the wider Hindu and Balinese tradition visually represented in the world of Raji through showy and colorful murals. By interacting with the latter, articulated dialogues will be activated between Durga and Vishnu, which will narrate numerous aspects of the Indian cultural universe as if they were memories. The most valuable element proposed in the production is certainly represented by the reconstruction of a magical and ancient India populated by demons and divinities. The architectures that form the background to Raji's journey, although not rich in details or characterized by a particular graphic quality, in fact manage to offer an intriguing glimpse into an imaginary full of potential. The colorful windows of a medieval fortress, colossal statues of divinities and ponds enveloped by the night and populated by carp and the water lilies create a suggestive snapshot on the screen. From the action nature, the combat system proposed by the indie game title sees Raji facing a fair variety of demons with concatenations of rapid attacks. In the early stages of the adventure, the protagonist holds the Trishula, a weapon similar to a trident given to her by the war goddess Durga, and the Sharanga, the bow offered by Vishnu. Both are characterized by a rather interesting moveset, which includes the possibility of taking advantage of the girl's circus skills. By chaining pirouettes and acrobatic leaps, Raji can in fact use her weapons to land effective combos and area attacks. Raji, an ancient epic, is an action-adventure that aims to combine story-driven nature with a playful amalgam composed of dynamic combat system, puzzle and platforming elements. Sadly, the title fails to shine in the now fierce and crowded landscape of the indie productions, because the boss fights are not very memorable and some technical issues among which an uncertain frame rate stands out, definitely preventing the intriguing project from expressing the potential of its suggestive settings. But despite these, I'm really enjoying my time with this one, as a history nerd and as a guy who likes to fight tons of enemies in an arena.
If there was ever an encyclopedia that replaced entries with computer games, I think Morbid would have a great chance to hands down earn the spot next to the word mediocre. Or boring. Completely ignoring the start, that is almost a carbon copy of the introductory sequence to Path of Exile, I'm having a ridiculously hard time trying to recall anything noteworthy or interesting about this title. The pixelated art style is, while not outstanding, probably the strongest aspect of Morbid, with the exception of the ever-present, laughably obnoxious red circle representing your cursor/aiming direction. The music, as well as the sound design, is forgettable. Combat is slow and uninteresting, but at least you can slow it down even further by attempting to sneak up on enemies. Enemy design in a nutshell is horror tropes, mixed with the occasional can't even be bothered to care, just gonna bug out and ignore the player. I don't want to be an asshole about it all, as there was clearly effort put into creating this game, and I've seen many worse in previous bundles, so let's just leave this at me recommending you steer far clear from this one.
If you are a lover of the Borderlands series, get ready to welcome a new indie game from the indie developers of Rise Up Studios called RoboQuest. The title under the graphic aspect is very reminiscent of the previously mentioned Borderlands. Despite this, the title is a roguelike style first-person shooter. The game's plot takes place in the year 2700 and humanity is on the verge of extinction, but things start to improve when a scavenger named Max discovers and reactivates an old guardian robot who will help her to dig into the surrounding canyons and caves. Right off the bat, I want to say that the music of this game is an absolute banger. The drums and the guitar is straight up pumping my blood pressure up and up during fights. This game is not about the story, it's about shooting massive robots and being fast. Now, this game is still in early access, but already shaping up to be a well-built game. You can have tons of weapons, tons of moves and perks, and well, grab a gun and start shooting things. A lot of games want to be more than they can serve, but not this one. You go shoot things, doing some headbanging, killing robots, and try to go further each run. And for me, that is pure fun. Not much is there to say, only that I had fun with this one, and the only reason it will not get a higher score, as it is still in early access and I can't rate an unfinished gem more than 2 points. Now get up, here's a gun, and go have fun, boyo.
UnMetal aims to deliver a B-movie experience in the form of a PC game and tell the story of overly manly man Mr. American Soldier and his great escape. The heart of the game is a top-down stealther/stealth action game that has you navigate straight corridors, sneak up on enemies or just neutralize them guns blazing, and collect key items in order to progress level by level. While I'd love to go into further detail on gameplay, there's really not much more here to tell. You move from room to room, study patrol routes, jump them at the right time and move on forward to find the needed rope, blue or yellow punch card, and repeat. The occasional boss battle will spice things up a bit, and whilst shooting grenade guy with a slingshot wasn't too interesting, fighting the biggest sewer monster with a flamethrower was actually way enjoyable. The one thing UnMetal stands on and will make or break it to any individual is the humor it delivers, which, while not my cup of tea, admittedly stirred up a giggle or two in my grumpy self as well. Ladies and gents, I'm sorry, but that's UnMetal. A simple, light-hearted action stealther that you gotta try out to figure out whether you'd like to play it or not. It's nothing amazing, but nothing off-putting either.
Aiko's Choice is a standalone expansion that fits into the main narrative strand of Shadow Tactics Blades of the Shogun. And to be precise, between the 8th and the 9th mission, when the quintet of protagonists is preparing to capture the fearsome Kage-sama. Something, however, temporarily distracts them for their plans. Lady Chiyo, Aiko's old sensei, has reappeared from the shadows, revealing that she too is part of the conspiracy that is throwing the shogunate into chaos. Our heroes will therefore find themselves forced to face this all-too-real ghost of Aiko's past, who will present herself to the group by imprisoning the exuberant Yuki and the ingenious Takuma. It will therefore be up to the Hayato Aiko Mugen trio to work hard to recover the rest of the team, once the team is reunited, to foil whatever plan Lady Chiyo and Kage-sama have in mind. In any case, what you are sure not to find in this expansion of Shadow Tactics Blade of the Shogun are new mechanics, much less new characters. The 3 main levels are structured on completely new environments. The only familiar face of the main game is the city of Matsuyama, where one of the mini-levels takes place. The various missions are perfectly in line with the quality and freedom of approaches. The beauty of the levels are that they allow a multitude of approaches. Whether you like to approach the game in a methodical way, taking the necessary calm, or whether you want to compete in speedrunning Aiko's Choice, we'll welcome you with open arms. Aiko's Choice is a product designed for those who loved Shadow Tactics and still want it, nothing more and nothing less. A task carried out with skill and competence, and which we will see a hands of the clock run at speeds that you did not think possible, but which does not dare to go beyond the poles. It is also for this reason that I'll be rating this with 2 points out of 3. If you hate the feeling of more of the same, Aiko's Choice is probably not for you, but everyone else will love this opportunity to spend more time in the company of Hayato, Mugen, Yuki, Aiko, Takuma and Kuma. In short, Aiko's Choice is a solid expansion, expanding the story and events of Shadow Tactics Blades of the Shogun, with 3 new main levels and 3 more much shorter ones. Great if you love the base game and you absolutely want more, but its lack of novelty and the fact that it is not a sequel does not make it essential.
Just one final step away from our Christmas bundle, hopefully packed to the brim with the best of the best. To get there, we first have to clear the November choice. Arguably, there's not even a single strong headliner here. That's already a bad start, but maybe Aiko's Choice, Re-Reckoning or Hell Let Loose, the supposed headliner in the first spot I guess, can prove I'm just ignorant and they're actually worthy? Well, Amalur turns out to be a re-release with annoying mechanics and no real improvement, so that's a thanks but no thanks. Aiko is a fairly decent entry within its genre. Pity it is so short, leaving us with HLL. This one is actually pretty fucking fun. It's a shame probably most would ignore it completely due to the nicheness of its gameplay. Speaking of niche genres, our only other 3-pointer this month suffers from the same sickness, otherwise known as "You're great, but barely anyone is interested in what you have to offer." And then, for a nice symmetric finish, we have one more 1-pointer in the form of Morbid, for being so grey of an experience, leaving UnMetal, Raji and RoboQuest to round out the mid lane. A set 16 points out of the maximum 24, November joins January for the lowest bundle of the year title, despite having 2 truly enjoyable games in there. If I was a glass half full type of guy, I'd say this leaves us at a great point for a legendary rebound to finish off this year, but I'm not, so fuck this quality dip. As always, don't forget YouTube appreciates if you do YouTube things for the hive mind, and we'll see you again next month.